Hey everyone and welcome! Get ready to dive into something super cool that we all have but don't really think much about. We're talking about those fascinating internal clocks, our circadian rhythms. I have to say, even just skimming the lecture transcript you sent us, I was hooked. This deep dive is going to be pretty eye-opening.
It really is fascinating stuff, and we're talking about a system that affects way more than are you a morning person or are you a night owl?
Exactly right. And it's not even just about sleep, although obviously that's a big one. We're talking mood, immunity, even how our cells function. And, you sent us this deep dive because you wanted to know more. So get ready for some serious aha moments as we unpack this whole thing together.
I think so.
To help us break down all the science, we've got an expert who can make even the most complex, like cellular stuff, totally relatable. In fact, I have a feeling you might even geek out a little bit on the details today. Am I right?
Let's just say circadian rhythms are a pretty exciting field right now.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What exactly are circadian rhythms, beyond just our bodies wanting to sleep at night?
Okay, so think of it like this. Imagine your body has this finely tuned internal clock, one that keeps all of your bodily functions running on this roughly 24-hour cycle. It's why we get sleepy at night and we wake up when the sun rises.
Okay.
It's like the conductor of our inner orchestra, right? Making sure everything's in sync.
Okay, I like that conductor of our inner orchestra, but you're saying it's way more than just sleep.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about a system that regulates like a symphony of processes. So we're talking hormone release, body temperature, metabolism, even how well our cells can repair themselves.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not just about feeling groggy if you don't get enough sleep.
Right.
It impacts your health in some pretty surprising ways.
So it's like our bodies are these perfectly timed machines, even if we don't realize it.
In a way, yeah. And here's a fun fact. These rhythms are not unique to humans. So plants, animals, even bacteria, they all have internal clocks too. It really shows how deeply rooted these rhythms are in life itself.
No kidding. So how does it all actually work? Is there actually a tiny clock ticking away in our brains somewhere?
You're closer than you think. We have what we call a master clock, which is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN for short. And it's located right in the hypothalamus of the brain.
The SCN, catchy. So that's the big boss calling all the shots for the whole body.
Exactly. The SCN takes its cues from light and darkness, and it sets the rhythm for that entire system. But here's where it gets even cooler. It's not the only clock we have. You see, we also have what are called peripheral clocks, which are located in organs throughout the body. So think like your liver, your heart, even your gut.
Whoa, wait a minute. There's more than one clock.
More than one clock.
I thought the SCN was running the whole show.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
But it gets even more intricate than that. These peripheral clocks, they're influenced by things like when we eat and how much we move. They're like mini clocks, making sure that each organ is kind of doing its thing at the right time.
Wow.
But how they all communicate and stay in sync with the SCN, well, that's something that scientists are still actively researching. It's like cutting-edge stuff.
Okay, my mind is already a little blown, and we're just getting started. So you mentioned hormones earlier. Are there specific ones that play a big role in all of this?
Yeah. So,
I know you said melatonin was involved.
yeah, melatonin is key.
Okay.
It's often called the sleep hormone.
Yeah.
Because it's produced by the pineal gland in response to darkness.
Right.
So as melatonin levels rise in the evening, our heart rate and body temperature begin to drop, and that gets us ready for bed.
Okay, so melatonin is basically the signal for our bodies to start winding down for the night.
Yes.
Makes sense. What about other hormones? Are there any that get us going in the morning?
Absolutely. Cortisol, often called the stress hormone.
Right.
Although it's not always a bad thing, its levels surge in the morning shortly after we wake up, which gives us that boost of alertness and energy to kind of tackle the day. As the day goes on, cortisol levels naturally decline, reaching their lowest point at night when melatonin is peaking.
Right.
It's this delicate dance between these two hormones to keep our energy levels balanced throughout the day.
This is so fascinating. So our bodies really do have these incredible systems in place, even if we don't ever think about them consciously.
We don't.
But how does this master clock, the SCN, actually know when it's day and night?
Right.
Is it really just about seeing the sun or feeling the darkness, or there's something more to it?
That's where things get really interesting on a molecular level.
Yeah.
And that's where our sense of sight comes in. You see, our eyes aren't just for seeing. They play a crucial role in setting those internal clocks.
Really? So how does that work?
How did that work?
I thought our eyes just sent signals to our brains to process images, not to tell time.
It is all about signals. But there are these specialized cells in our retinas, those light-detecting cells at the back of our eyes.
Yeah.
They do more than just help us see. When these light detectors sense light, they actually send signals directly to the SCN in the brain, letting it know, hey, it's time to be awake and alert.
Wow, so they're like the SCN's eyes,
Yes.
telling it what time it is in the outside world. So cool. But does it matter what kind of light these cells detect? Like, is sunlight different from, say, artificial light?
That is a fantastic question, and yes, it absolutely matters. Different wavelengths of light have different effects on our circadian rhythms. Blue light, which is emitted from the sun, and unfortunately most of our electronic devices, is the most potent at suppressing melatonin production.
Oh, so that's why staring at my phone before bed keeps me up.
Keeps you up.
I always thought it was just like the endless scrolling.
It could be.
Okay.
It could be.
This is blowing my mind. So if these rhythms are so finely tuned, what happens when they get thrown off? Tell me everything.
All right, so our internal clock's way more complex than I ever imagined, and they're super connected to light. But now I really want to know, what happens when these rhythms get disrupted?
Yeah.
And we've all pulled late nights or traveled across time zones, What's the big deal?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the truth is, when our circadian rhythms are out of sync, it can have this domino effect on our entire, bodies and minds.
Okay, so let's talk about those dominoes. What's the first one to fall?
Well, I mean, sleep is the most obvious one, right?
Right.
When our internal clock is aligned with that natural day-night cycle, we tend to fall asleep easily, we sleep soundly, and we wake up feeling refreshed. But even slight misalignments can disrupt that really delicate balance.
Right. And we're not just talking about, feeling a little sleepy.
Right.
Didn't you say it can impact our health in some surprising ways? Exactly. It's not just about how much sleep we get, but also the timing and the quality of that sleep. Our bodies are designed to sleep when it's dark and to be awake when it's light. When we disrupt that natural rhythm, it affects the production of those, key hormones we were just talking about,
Right.
melatonin and cortisol.
Right. The sleep hormone and the stress hormone.
Precisely. And those hormones, they don't just impact our energy levels.
Right.
They influence everything from our mood to our metabolism.
Okay, so messed up sleep is a big one. What else takes a hit when our circadian rhythms are off? I know the outline mentioned something about mental health, which I find kind of hard to believe, to be honest.
It's true. Studies have shown this really strong link between circadian disruptions and mood disorders,
Yeah.
like depression, anxiety, even bipolar disorder.
Really? So you're saying, my sleep cycle can affect my mental health, but how? Seems like such a big leap.
Well, remember how we talked about how circadian rhythms influence this whole symphony of bodily processes?
Yeah.
That includes our brain chemistry, right? And our emotional well-being.
Yeah.
Think about it, when you're sleep deprived, you're probably more irritable, right?
Right.
Now imagine that on a chronic level.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know I'm not exactly a ray of sunshine when I haven't slept well. But is there any, concrete evidence for this link?
Oh, absolutely. One of the most striking examples is seasonal affective disorder, or SAD.
Oh, yeah, SAD, the winter blues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that.
So as the days get shorter in the winter, the reduced sunlight disrupts our circadian rhythms. And that disruption, it affects our melatonin and serotonin levels, which are both linked to mood regulation.
Wow. It's amazing how sensitive our bodies are to light. Okay, so we've talked about sleep and mental health. What
Yeah.
about our physical health? Does our internal clock affect that too?
Absolutely. A major area is metabolism, how our bodies process energy.
Uh-huh.
When we eat, plays a significant role in this.
Yeah.
Our digestive system, just like every other part of our body, has its own internal clock. Disrupt that clock.
Yeah.
And things can get out of whack.
So what you're saying is it's not just about what we eat, but also when we eat.
Exactly. Our bodies are primed to, digest food and absorb nutrients more efficiently in certain times of day.
Okay.
Eating in sync with those natural rhythms can help regulate blood sugar levels. It can boost energy. It can even impact our weight.
Okay, so give me an example. What happens when we mess up those eating rhythms? Say, late night snacking,
That's a perfect example. That midnight snack might seem harmless,
right?
but it's actually sending these confusing signals to your metabolism. You see, your body is programmed to wind down at night, not gear up for digestion.
So I guess those late night cravings for pizza and ice cream aren't doing me any favors.
Not really. When you eat late at night, you're essentially telling your body to store those calories as fat instead of burning them for energy.
Yeah.
And over time, this can lead to weight gain, insulin resistance, and an increased risk of type 2 diabetes.
Ouch. All right, you've officially made me rethink my late night snacking habits. But it occurs to me, what about people who work night shifts or just have like really irregular schedules?
Right.
Is their health just doomed because they can't follow these like ideal rhythms?
It's definitely more challenging for them, but it's not a hopeless situation at all.
Okay, good.
We're hardwired to respond to light and dark cycles, but there are things that, people can do to kind of minimize the impact of those kind of unavoidable disruptions.
Okay.
And we'll get into those strategies a bit later.
Okay, good. Because honestly, I was starting to feel like modern life is one giant circadian obstacle course.
It is.
Between artificial light and work schedules and constant access to technology, it's no wonder so many people are struggling.
You're right. It's a real challenge. But that's all the more reason to understand how these rhythms work so we can make conscious choices to kind of support our internal clocks, right?
Totally. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about those solutions. I'm ready for some actionable advice. Okay, so we've really journeyed deep into this world of circadian rhythms, from those molecular clocks ticking away in our cells to that crazy domino effect that happens when those rhythms get thrown off. But now, let's talk solutions.
Right.
What can we do about it? I'm ready for some actionable tips here because let's be real, what good is all this knowledge if we don't actually use it?
Totally. And knowledge is power, right?
Right.
The good news is that when it comes to our circadian rhythms, even small changes to our daily routines can make a big difference in kind of getting our internal clocks back on track.
Okay, so hit me with your best shot. What are the most impactful things we can do to optimize these internal clocks?
Well, we've talked a lot about light today.
Right.
And how crucial it is to these rhythms.
Right.
So naturally, that's where we need to start. Prioritizing natural light exposure, especially in the morning, is key.
Okay, so ditch the blackout curtains, let the sun shine in.
Yeah.
Okay, I can get behind that. I've definitely been feeling more sluggish since, the days got shorter.
Yeah, that's a common experience. The reduced sunlight during the winter months can really disrupt our circadian rhythms, which is why seasonal affective disorder is so prevalent this time of year. But even if it's not winter, getting that morning light, it helps reset that internal clock.
Right.
And it sets you up for better sleep later on.
Yeah, it's like hitting the reset button, like you were saying. Okay, so more sunlight in the morning. What about the evening? Should we be lighting candles and pretending it's the 1800s?
Well, that's one way to do it.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend going quite that far.
Okay.
But you're on the right track. You see, as the sun starts to set, our bodies naturally begin producing melatonin, which, like we said, signals it's time to wind down for sleep.
Right.
But we've got all this artificial light around us,
Right.
especially that blue light from our phones, our laptops.
Right, that blue light we talked about, the melatonin disruptor.
Exactly. So in the evening, it's all about creating a relaxing and sleep-conducive environment. And you can do that by minimizing your exposure to bright lights, especially the blue light.
Okay, so dim the lights, put away the phone, maybe read a book by a warm lamp instead.
There you go.
I can do that.
You got it.
But what about my sleep schedule? I am so guilty of sleeping in on the weekends.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a no-go too?
Well, consistency is key when it comes to regulating your circadian rhythm. When you sleep in on the weekends, you're essentially giving yourself social jet lag, like every week.
Ugh, you're right. It feels good in the moment, but then I'm dragging by Sunday night. Okay, fine, you've convinced me. Consistent sleep schedule it is. What about food? You mentioned that when we eat is important.
Yeah.
But are there certain foods that can actually support our circadian rhythms?
That's a great question. And you're right, we did talk about the importance of when you eat.
Right.
But what you eat can also make a difference. So in general, a balanced and nutritious diet is always a good idea, right?
Right.
But when it comes to supporting your circadian rhythm, focusing on whole, unprocessed foods is key.
Okay, so fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Those late night cravings you mentioned, they're often a sign that your circadian rhythm is out of whack. Try opting for healthier snacks earlier in the evening if you can.
Okay. I'm getting the message. Eat healthy, eat earlier, and go to bed at a reasonable hour. Anything else I should add to my circadian to-do list?
Well, there's one more powerful tool we haven't mentioned yet.
Okay.
Physical activity.
Exercise. You want me to exercise? I thought we were talking about sleep.
I know. But hear me out. Physical activity isn't just good for your physical health.
Okay.
It also helps regulate your circadian rhythm.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does that work?
So when you exercise, it increases your body temperature, which can signal to your internal clock that it's time to be awake and alert. It also helps to improve sleep quality by promoting deeper and more restful sleep.
So it's like a win-win. I guess I could swap that late-night Netflix binge for a trip to the gym. Or even just a walk around the block, right?
Exactly. It doesn't have to be anything too intense. Even a little bit of movement can make a difference.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. It seems like optimizing our circadian rhythms is really about like embracing a healthier lifestyle overall.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's all interconnected.
Right.
When we live in sync with our natural rhythms, we tend to make healthier choices.
Right.
And those healthier choices further support our circadian rhythms,
Mhm.
creating that positive feedback loop.
I love that. A positive feedback loop. Who doesn't want that? So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, is there any like final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important takeaway here is that your circadian rhythm, it's like your own personal instruction manual for optimal health and well-being. It's unique to you, and it's constantly communicating with you. By tuning into your body's natural rhythms and making those small adjustments to support those rhythms, you can unlock a world of potential, both physically and mentally.
That is a really powerful message. So listeners, next time you feel that like afternoon slump or you find yourself like tossing and turning at night, remember your internal clock is talking to you. Listen to it, work with it, and embrace that incredible power of your circadian rhythm. And on that note, it's time for us to sign off. Thanks for joining us for this fascinating deep dive into the world of circadian rhythms. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those internal clocks ticking in sync.